This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and
George. All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com podcast. We have most of the crew here. We just had Bob Przbillo in to do a hoops report, so you'll be seeing his shining face on the YouTube channel. By the way, I want to mention 20,000 now, over 20,000 subscribers to the YouTube channel. Very proud of that. Thank you to all who are a part of that. Of course, I will tell you, we've got new studio set under production right now. It should be here the 1st of March. So YouTube, the U40 is about to go big time with everybody shining faces on it here in probably a couple months. So you won't have to ask in the comments anymore, why isn't this on video? Because we started this thing over 10 years ago, and it just was audio only, and that's how we kept it, and we'll be moving to video soon. But I want to welcome in the entire crew. There's been a lot going on. It doesn't seem like it because we don't have practice all the time to be covering and games and all that stuff, but we're down to the national championship coming up on Monday. All kinds of stuff surrounding that. Basketball tonight is a 9 o'clock tip-off inside the Lloyd Noble. Eddie's going to go home directly after this and take a nap, I'm sure.
I don't know. I'll probably stay around. I have nothing else to do, and I'm really not that tired.
You've taken off
and I'm
tomorrow.
taking off radio tomorrow, so yeah, it doesn't really matter.
You've got your new OKC 89ers hat on, the moon.
Yeah, the Comet hat.
That's cool.
I've had it for a minute. I like
That's the first time I've noticed it.
Well, this is the this logo that you all can't see out there is the secondary logo, but I think it's the best logo.
No, it's a good.
They should have gone with this, but it's not. It's like the little Comet Man. I like it. I'm going to buy a bunch of gear when they come out with it.
And we've got, NBA going on to keep us busy. A big Cavs game coming up tomorrow night, possible revenge for the Thunder. I don't know, you guys, are you game time and tickets for that one?
We might. I don't know. I actually think Thursday night probably would be the night to do it because there are going to be some pretty high prices. But, yeah, I mean, we're going to go to game.
That's on Thursday?
Going to game. Tomorrow night, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Tomorrow night.
You guys know people.
Thunder are playing awesome, though.
You're YouTube stars.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to watch. That East Coast swing, I mean, they just beat the shit out of the Knicks. And who cares about the Wizards and the 76ers, but it was awesome.
Josh, you kind of look like Mr. Mom in the phase when he was, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, but when he was wearing a robe around everywhere, you're unkempt today. I'm kind of sad you're not on video.
Well,
220,
the kids are back in
whatever
school.
it takes.
I'm just enjoying life again. I get a little time to myself. I can do the things I need to do. I can actually get some work done. It's a thing of beauty, and you're right. I haven't put any product in my hair, so that's looking a little shaky.
The beard's unkempt.
Yeah, it doesn't help. It's just raining constantly right now in Houston, like every day it feels like. So it's kind of like I don't want to mess with any of it because it's just going to get jacked up again. And I think that's when you're giving up on life a little bit when you hit that point. But, that's where I'm at.
Well, we got a lot of coaching stuff going on, both in the NFL and college. And Jim Knowles had a press conference yesterday. I don't know if you did this, George. I went back through and read the transcript just to see if there was anything in there. And he wasn't asked. It was all Notre Dame questions for the most part. But I'll say this. It's not OU has not hired anybody. And I still don't think this thing is dead in the water. We had some Ohio State nut job on YouTube make a 9-minute video about us, which I'm going to tell you what, if Jim Knowles ends up as the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, We're going to be shoving a lot of stuff back in people's faces. And by the way, I'll just say, it's not like we predicted that he was going to be the defensive coordinator. We just said, again, I reiterate, that there had been some mutual discussions.
If there was smoke last week when we talked and we did this, I would say like that smoke, I don't want to use that analogy. It just seems like there's maybe even more this week as we get closer. I don't know.
Well, you think about it. I mean,
it hasn't been ruled out, which I think is interesting.
There's so many NFL openings. Like, what happens if the winning coach of the national championship ends up interviewing and taking an NFL job? Then what happens to Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles just sitting there as coordinators if Ryan Day becomes a head coach?
It's incredible. It's incredible to think about like how much movement could still be to come. And I guess,
I think Marcus Freeman might be able to get a job if he wins or loses.
It's crazy to me that, I think the Dallas Cowboys, Marcus Freeman's name was thrown out there. Was it? Oh, no, it was Chicago that his name was initially thrown out there.
Right, yeah. Of course, Chicago's interviewing everyone.
I've never, and I would not trust the McCaskey family to do anything. It's crazy to me that, like, I've just never thought of Marcus Freeman as a National Football League type coach. I've just, for some reason in my brain, have thought of him as a college football lifer. But, if Notre Dame were to win the national championship, I'm sure that overtures from the NFL would be hard to turn down.
And he's got two really veteran coordinators that, are running his offense and defense. So he is a head coach. I mean, this is like Brent, he's gone through quite the learning curve. He was, Marcus Freeman was never the coordinator that Brent Venables was, but Brent Venables has not been the head coach that Marcus Freeman has been.
It's crazy.
Josh, I think you had something on that.
And I agree. Like, we talked about this a week ago or so, where the narrative on Marcus Freeman has changed so much in the last year, where it's like, oh, look at these game time decisions he's making. Like, he's really managing in the way, and, I know a lot of people don't watch, a lot of people obviously listen to us are more college football folks, and I certainly am too. But you watch NFL decision-making and some of the game management stuff, and I know obviously George covering it for a couple years. Like, those guys, some of the stuff they think through, I'm like, holy cow. Like, they're playing chess while, everybody else is playing checkers. But Freeman has started to show some of that. And I don't know about you guys, but, like we're kind of talking about whoever wins the national championship could be, a future NFL head coach. Guys, I don't care if Notre Dame loses by 3 touchdowns. I'd rather have Marcus Freeman than Ryan Day any day of the week.
It was not lost on me. I think it was during the semifinal game with Notre Dame. They kept panning over to Marcus Freeman, and the analytics guy standing right behind him. And, Freeman obviously has to have the balls to be able to say, all right, we're going to trust the numbers here. But I think that there is something to it. I don't think it's just basically all on gut feel, some of the decisions that he's made. And it's all obviously turned out really well for him. It's been a positive. If you go out there and you trust the analytics and then it doesn't work out, we'd probably be having a different conversation. And obviously Notre Dame wouldn't be playing in a national championship on Monday night.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
George has been awfully quiet.
I'm working on something.
Okay.
We'll get to it later in the show.
Interesting.
Just some
breaking
crunch. No. Just crunching some numbers that I think are really interesting about retention rate.
Are you going to ruin OU's chances for something else here, George?
Apparently it was my fault that the. Well, I guess it's not over yet with Jim Knowles, but we'll see.
What is your gut feel on that? Are we still crazy? And I'm saying all 4 of us.
I don't know, because everything that we've heard from people, whether it's in the program and. I think even people in the program are a little skeptical of it, but then I think also talking to some people nationally, I don't think we're as crazy as it may sound. I know
as
that
people make us out to be.
Yeah, I think
all we ever said was this is a possibility, a very small possibility.
Look, what we know is that there was some sort of communication. To what extent, we have no idea. That's what I would say, and I can tell you that it has reached a point.
I'll tell you right now. You want me to tell you?
Yes.
Brent and Jim Knowles have talked.
Yes, there you go. And that's what I meant. There's been some communication, and it's reached
very
a point.
cursory discussions,
right? But it's reached a point where there are people nationally that report on these things that have heard the same things and are saying that it's
they're going as far to like reach out to you and be like, am I just a crazy asshole right now to even say this? Because on the surface, and like the Ohio State guy that made the video about us explained, like there's a lot of things that you go, what the fuck? Why would he do that?
And we're saying that to ourselves. Like literally, when I first said it, Eddie and George, probably more Eddie, scoffed at me. Like
it wasn't a scoff. It was a
crazy
laugh.
old
man. It was a laugh.
It was hand up. I did too. I thought it was insane.
Gary
you
needs to take a nap.
Immediately discounted it. And then I went on my soapbox about journalism and reporting and blah, blah, blah.
He lectures us too, people. It's not just you all.
That did happen.
But guys, what I want to say is, like, for me, and like that's the toughest question for me to answer that we're all getting all the time right now. Like, how real is this thing with Jim Knowles? Because logically, it still doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I still don't know why you do that. Now, unless Jim Knowles knows something like, hey, Ryan Day's not going to be in Columbus next year. Like, that's the only thing where I'm
okay, this working, like Zach Alley, maybe this isn't a relationship that I'm enjoying. Like, I would rather go somewhere and be in a different situation with my, I'm older. I've got a fiance. She lives in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a possibility. Like, maybe he's just not loving the Ohio State experience.
Is that a simp move?
Yeah.
That will be discussed if we are.
To all Ohio State fans, to the YouTube guy, it is.
It would be. Yeah.
I also want to say that I still think the most likely scenario is that Brent's calling the defense next year. That's my
and Wes Goodwin comes in as linebacker coach. I think that is the most likely scenario. That he hires Wes Goodwin as his linebackers coach, and he is in charge of the defense for next year.
And I think the logical, question to that would be, well, why haven't they done anything yet?
Because they're waiting to find out.
That's what I'm saying. That's kind of our line of thinking, though, and what's going on here.
Because if Wes Goodwin was the number one choice, the guy that they wanted to do,
he would have been named last week.
Yeah, or 2 weeks ago.
I mean, Clemson's already named a defense coordinator. They took Tom Allen from Penn State,
right? Yeah,
former Indiana head coach.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. I do know of one other guy that Brent's looking at that is a defensive coordinator in Division I. But it's not a big name. It's not a name that anybody would recognize.
Yeah.
It's just a guy that runs a very similar defense. And maybe I don't know, maybe he has a relationship with some people through coaching clinics or just, you know how that goes. Sometimes, staffs visit other, schools during spring when they're not, doing stuff. And maybe he's got, like Brent, we always get into this thing of, oh, well, where does his tentacles go? Like, who is he got relationships with? Like, what makes sense? Sometimes, if you're doing your job, other good coaches. Like, you think of like when Bob Stoops hired Kevin Wilson, they had no relationship. He was a guy that he heard of that was at Northwestern that was doing one of the best jobs as an offensive coordinator in the country. He needed an offensive line coach. He was an offensive lineman in college, coached the offensive line. He brought him in, and there was no connection. But it ended up being a great hire. And Kevin Wilson, lest he be fired by Tulsa, has had a great career and a very, successful career as an offensive coordinator.
But you have to say, until Ben Arbuckle, that hasn't been Brent's mode of operation.
Right.
That's not the way he's done it. So now, again, maybe Ben is a pivot. Like, it's okay, I've got to do this a little differently. I've got to look at it a little differently. Or maybe it's just a one-off. Like, you don't know. But until that point, he had hired strictly people that he had real connection to.
And even in his staff, I mean, Curtis Lofton, guys, Josh Norman, guys that he knew from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Brent. I mean, Brent came up, with Mike and Bob, and I mean, he was kind of like a fourth or fifth Stoops brother. They don't call him that, but that's where he gets everything in his, mentorship or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, this is still something that has to develop.
It kind of seems like, though,
but it's not dead. I guess that's the best way.
By the end of the game on Monday night, you would think things are going to start ramping up for Oklahoma and what they're going to do with that defense coordinator job. You would think.
I would say we should know some things immediately after that game.
I would say maybe by the next unofficial 40,
okay, we might know who it is.
That's my gut feeling on it.
Yeah. And again,
or this, if Jim Knowles just said, you know what, I thought about it. I'm gonna stay here, and maybe Brent tomorrow names Wes Goodwin as linebackers coach. Then we'd know that it was over.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because I think that obviously the positive side of it, if you were able to take Jim Knowles away, as bad as the optics were for losing Zach Alley, I think you reverse that 180 and then times it by 500.
I mean, look,
I had somebody.
Go ahead, Josh.
Just quickly, yeah, I had somebody ask me in board chat this week, Josh, is it just about all the talent? Because I mean, they're watching Ohio State and they see, look at all these seniors and all these NFL guys and all these guys that came back, and I'm like, guys, he had a top 25 defense at Duke. He had a great defense year over year at Oklahoma State. This is not just about, oh, he's got really good talent, which of course he does. He's a really, really good defensive coordinator. He, again, as hard as I was on OU about the Zach Alley situation, I couldn't agree more with Eddie. You come out ahead. Jim Knowles is as good a defensive coordinator as you'll find in the country.
I mean, Mike Gundy hired him because he said he went around and was looking at who was producing the best results with the least amount of great athletes, and that's what stood out to him about Jim Knowles, and that's what he did at Oklahoma State, and that's why he's at Ohio. That's why he's getting $2.2 million.
Yeah, and I think you've seen what he's able to do with extremely talented guys like Caleb Downs. I mean,
oh my God,
Ohio State defense started playing really, really well. It wasn't their fault they got beat by Michigan.
I mean, yeah, it's he's a really good defensive coordinator. All right, a lot of this stuff has taken pretty good vision to be able to kind of get our way through it and determine fact from fiction and if we're just a bunch of idiots or not. One thing that really helped was Eddie's vision because thanks to Enjoy, he has very good vision.
Glasses and contacts are so last season. It's a new year, Sooner fans, and that means new opportunities to win championships, hopefully. Get back on track, and thanks to Enjoy Vision, you can save $1,000 on LASIK. All you got to do is schedule a free consultation today. EnjoyVision.com, the letter N-J-O-Y Vision.com, and start the new year with a fresh perspective. And you'd also keep $1,000 in your pocket and use it on drugs or whatever. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner scoop LASIKs.
Maybe like gambling.
That's illegal.
No, it's not in Oklahoma. I'm at casinos.
Well, I don't know if I'd do that. We respect the tribes, but I don't know. I've never heard of anybody just having great success. You hear every once in a while of people going out to the casinos, but I don't know. I have a buddy that his mom actually goes to casinos quite a bit. And I'd never hear about the losses, but it's every other week or every other month, I guess. Yeah, she hit a $5,000 jackpot at Remington.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the commercials, I won $10,000, and it's it didn't say that you lost 20 before you.
Yeah, that's the follow up.
Yeah,
that's the follow up for them.
No, I'll tell you this. I was so excited when Oklahoma got craps. I went out for the first month and played craps a lot. I haven't been back in years now. I don't know what it is.
It's been a minute since I've been out to Riverwind, but we used to go out there when I was in school. They would do a guys' night on Friday, and it was back in the day. They changed it over, and they just give you a card with $25 on it. But they used to just give you $25 cash. We would walk in on a Friday night.
Oh my God. 5
of us. We get $25, and then we just go buy beer. It was awesome. Wouldn't even step into the gaming portion of.
You're the reason they went to a card, basically.
Well, yeah, because by the end of it. Everybody, all the guys knew about it.
Yeah.
There was literally lines outside of Riverwind to get $25, and nobody was ever going in.
All right.
They got wise to it.
You live and you learn. Okay, so there's your coaching discussion. I know it's been a busy week just overall. Josh was at San Antonio. The game was played on Saturday, and I know I'm trying to think, was Jaden O'Neal, I mean, he was at the combine that they had. Was there ever any thought of him playing in the game, or is there just too many 2025 quarterbacks that they've got to get to?
Yeah, I was a little surprised because, I mean, some of the guys that they had there, including a kid from Salina in Texas that was a 2026 guy, you've got to think if they would have extended Jaden O'Neal an invitation, he would have come. Now, I wonder if maybe he didn't go to the camps. Like, I don't know if Jaden hit up the
Yeah,
FBU
sometimes you have to
stuff,
qualify for that stuff.
Yeah.
By going to all the different camps that they have. The regional stuff.
And they certainly want to reward you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like it's a requirement, but like, hey, if it's close, if we feel like this guy's pretty good and he came to our camps or he's been coming here since he was 10 years old, they'll usually try to hit those guys and take care of them, which, that's fine. But no, there was never really any talk of that. But what I will say is, talking to, obviously I wasn't there on the day Jaden camped, but talking to, some of the guys that were there, it sounded like he had a really good day. Was really clean, threw the ball really well. And I think more than anything, just seeing him talk with some of the media. I know our guy Sam Spiegelman, that's now over at Rivals that worked with us.
Does a good job, yeah.
Yeah, Sam does a good job and had some great quotes from Jaden. He sounds very locked in. I mean, like, everything sounds right. We honestly need to, get something together with Jaden, maybe bring him back on the show and let him talk Ben Arbuckle and what those conversations have been like. And
we do need to do that, Josh.
Yeah. Hey, like I said, you tell me what you want. And we're on it. But no, with Jaden, I think in a time where it would have been really easy for him to be shaky and things to look kind of, just bad, because he was a guy that really was connected to Seth Luttrell. He and his father really liked Seth Luttrell. He's remained really solid. When, again, you couldn't have blamed him if he'd have said, I want to look around, I want to see what's out there. He hasn't done any of that.
Josh, just real quick, this might be a completely ridiculously stupid question. Is there a scenario that maybe they presented Jaden with the opportunity to play in this year's game and he said no because he wants to play in the Under Armour game next year? Could you do both, I guess, is my question. Could you play in the 2020 as a 2026 in the Navy game and then turn around next December or early January and then play in the Under Armour game?
I don't know of any reason why you couldn't, unless,
there's some states that have that weird rule about all-star games. I think most of that's gone away now, but I remember there were some, wasn't there somebody that had a law like you couldn't play in a state championship or something if you played in a national game or something like that?
Well, you couldn't play in the following spring. Like, if you played in one of these all-star games, your eligibility for spring sports and any sports going forward,
that's what it was,
were null and void. Like, it was a whole problem. Like, I remember Gerald McCoy going through this when he wanted to, I believe he was going to do track for Southeast his senior year. So there was a lot of stuff like that Oklahoma used to do, and it prevented guys, and then eventually they kind of changed that rule and removed it so guys could come play in these games. But I can't remember what the rule is in California, and obviously with the idea that Jaden O'Neal still has a senior year to play, and even he's going to be enrolling this time next year, he still has to go through his spring football, has to go through his season his senior year. So there's some other stuff he's got to consider there a little bit, but I don't know if that was anything to do with it, because I know, I want to say Pennsylvania is one of those states that there's several, and they talked about it during the game, like there were some limitations on certain things. So I could absolutely believe that, but usually when it comes to things like this, and Eddie, get your political pitchforks out, California's usually pretty progressive with these things. They usually are not big on we're going to limit the players and the athletes. They're usually pretty forward thinking, and their NIL stuff is what got a lot of the current state that we see things in started.
Keep it easy on the people of California.
Yeah, it's not a good time to be going after California right now. There's enough people doing
I stand with the people of Pacific Palisades and Altadena. I know more about geography in the city of Los Angeles than I would ever care to admit.
Well, it's like I have
infatuated
friends
with
in Manhattan Beach, and so you're looking up and seeing okay, well, that's the safe spot to be out there. But we know a guy in Calabasas that had to evacuate.
My buddies, my college roommates,
they were in the West Hollywood.
They had to evacuate from West Hollywood.
That's I mean, it's just
that was on
terrible.
the Wednesday or Thursday fire, I think.
Yeah,
but yeah, gotten kind of pissed off seeing people trying to go after the state of California about stuff that's not true, like the fire truck stuff. And
Well,
all
don't
that.
get me wrong. I mean, it is run by a bunch of idiots.
Yes, I mean, but at the same time, they did a good job with when you talk to the people that are from California. Like, it could have been a lot worse.
After the case.
Yeah.
Not having water and all that kind of shit's just incredible to me.
Yeah, I mean, look. Anyway, we got to take it easy on people in California right now. They're going through a bunch. And I think, given to the American Red Cross, that can certainly help if you want to do anything for those folks out there.
Speaking of, congratulations to our guy JP Hughes. He got married.
He got married. Weekend. Yeah, I saw that on Instagram.
Cool. Congratulations,
JP. Okay, so back to kind of the recruiting stuff. Did you get to take in much of watching Fodje play, and what were your thoughts there? Because I know he was even having to play center some because they lost a guy during the week.
They did, and that to me was really interesting, and something that, like I said, guys, I was there on Wednesday of that week, so 3 days before the game, and I can tell you I was there for the entire practice, watched him very closely. He didn't take a snap at center. That was not the plan. The Jones, I think it's Keaton Jones, he's a kid from Kansas that Oklahoma actually looked at, was supposed to be the starting center, and he did play some, but I want to say I think Ryan Fodje took every single snap at center in the fourth quarter. So I don't know, maybe the kid injured his hand. I don't know what created it, but they clearly said, okay, hey, Ryan, we're going to need you to step over and play some center, and I thought he played it pretty well. Obviously, big-bodied kid, very athletic. I mean, there's a lot that makes sense there. But, I mean, again, you're talking about a guy that had played a very little bit of guard and then moves to center the week of, and isn't a guy that just, grew up around the game. Like, he got to Bridgeland and started playing his freshman year of high school. Like, this isn't a kid that just, grew up thinking about football and has moved all around and just kind of grew into a tackle's body. He just kind of was a tackle. That's kind of how it went. So this is I couldn't have been more impressed with how he handled that situation. And, again, anybody that saw the interview, that shouldn't surprise you. Like, Ryan's a super, kind of team guy. Like, whatever is best, I'll do that. Like, he comes from a good program there at Bridgeland. So, do I think that's where he ends up? No, not really. But you've got to think Bill Bedenbo's thinking, I don't have a backup center. I don't hate the idea of putting one of my most talented offensive linemen behind Troy Everett and kind of seeing what happens.
Yeah, and I would think Josh Iasosa would have to lose a little bit of weight to be really effective at center. He's just so massive.
Yeah. And that's never been their model. As much as we've always known Bill to love big guys, he's never been I want a big, beefy center in there. I mean, Creed's as big as it's ever been. And Creed's just a freak athlete. So it kind of could work. But, yeah, I mean, in general, you can tell he likes the smaller guys, the more technical guys than anything else. Or that I guess I don't know what his perfect version is, but that seems to be the way he skews.
Yeah, I've talked to Gabe Eichert about that quite a bit. He says that you don't want guys that are – your smallest guys are going to be your centers because you just don't want a lot of bulk in there. And I'm sure it has to do with snapping the ball and, more things can go wrong if you've got more to snap around.
We talking about undercarriage problems here? Is that what we're talking about here, Kerry?
I think
seems
so,
like
yeah.
an issue.
Yeah, I think that is what we're talking about. Anyway, outside of that, anything just really stick out to you about the All-Star game?
No, I thought it was. I don't know. The game itself, I thought was kind of boring. Some of those are really exciting, and there's a lot of big plays. That was kind of a just offensive battle, and they kind of struggled to move around. But again, from an OU perspective, I thought Tristan Haynes in the clips you could see he was kind of out of frame. Sometimes you didn't really get a great look at him. I thought he was solid. I thought Ryan Fodje, again, played really, really well. Even, if you take the center situation out of it, he was moving people at guard. So between he and Fasusi and, kind of the two kind of pillars of that offensive class, I think you got a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to kind of build around and see what direction it goes. And like we talked about on the Portal show on Monday, or I guess Tuesday, guys, the offensive line group, OU fans have reason for optimism. I'm not telling you it's going to be a perfect group this year because it's still young. You still got a lot of moving parts, but there's a lot of talent there where you say, okay, either this guy's very talented or he's very experienced, and surely Oklahoma can find a way to make that a far, far better group than what we saw in 2024.
And by the way, one last thing on the All-Star game, the All-American game. Maybe it's me, I'm just an old man, but are we about done with live announcements? They've lost, to me, all their luster.
Yeah. It's just not, I think that's slowly killing the game because so many people that tuned in, that's what they were tuning in for, is to watch the guy pick between LSU and Florida or OU and Texas or whatever it may be, to kind of have those moments and then, calling their buddy and talking shit. Like that was half the fun of it.
But it's not so much.
Well, everybody's almost done.
Yeah, that's the thing. It used to be Adrian Peterson was going to decide. Right. All the big ones are mainly gone. So you're like, yeah, it's a 3-star out of Detroit, selecting between Michigan State, Ohio, and
for using Ryan Fodje as an example, Josh, he told you that his bags were packed. He was headed to up I-35 as soon as the game was over. Now, back in the day, they wouldn't even know where they are packing their bags to go. It is kind of crazy, but it's also a commentary just on how accelerated everything is nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And the guys that made the announcements, guys, they were, I think one of them was maybe a top 300 player. Another guy was kind of a project that's going to Cal. And then another guy, I want to say, one of the hats on the table was Jackson State or something. And I don't mean that as a slight to Jackson State, but we're used to watching those announcements where it's Joe Mixon, it's Adrian Peterson, it's these big-time freaking guys.
Or Landon Collins.
Was happening.
Yeah.
That was LSU and Alabama.
Collins, absolutely. Yeah, and there was nothing like that in that game, and
so maybe I'm being too hard on the live announcements things, but it's clearly just an issue of the announcement aren't as meaningful as they used to be.
Yes, I would agree. Absolutely,
and I think people just know that they have their own platform, and they could probably get as many people to watch, when they do something at their school or whenever, as probably you could at the end of the day on national television. I don't know. People are just more in tune too. I think that the day and age of just truly, truly being surprised by somebody is few and far between.
Well, because it used to be like the draft, where the draft, you've got the Senior Bowl, you've got the Combine. You've got these 4 or 5 windows through this whole 4 or 5 month process where everybody's kind of tuned in and really locked into what's going on. And it used to be that way in recruiting, okay, signing day, okay, the All-Star games. There were 3 or 4 days where everybody was kind of on the same page, and then the rest of the time they were just kind of in and out with it, not really that locked in. That's not the case anymore. Recruiting, guys, we know, most of OU's class, even in a year where there's some turmoil and we'll have to see how things go, most of OU's class is going to be committed by the start of fall camp. That's just the way this goes now.
All right. Now back to the offensive line. We've talked a little bit about it, but George was putting together his 2 deep, and that's kind of where we were sitting talking around in the office. And I was asking some more people about it, just what they think, and even Gabe a little bit. But I think what's most impressive and is almost a good sign, even though it sounds bad, is I don't know how there's a chance that Jake Taylor and Jacob Sexton aren't even starters when next year gets underway. Now I think Logan Halland, that's a setback for the line overall because it's going to prevent him from getting bigger, stronger. And
if people don't know, it appears that he had a shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
Some type of cleanup or something.
It was some type of it was, who knows, labrum, something. Offensive linemen have a lot of labrum injuries, but. He's a guy that's young, needs to be in the weight room, got a lot better last year, and was trending towards kind of becoming a dominant player on the offensive line. Now he's going to have to, take more time to get stronger. He won't be going through spring, you would think. And so it's a little bit of a setback. But, that's why you bring in a couple of transfers. You see what they can do. Maybe they can kind of put a Band-Aid on that. And then, like we said, Michael Fasusi, who knows? Ryan Fodje, who knows? But, yeah, I mean, every time you start looking at that offensive line in the two deep and the youth and how much they got better, you can't help but feel a little bit better about the offensive line.
Well, and the guy, and I want to give a shout out because somebody on the board called me out because they were watching the YouTube show and were like, you guys don't ever mention Isaiah Autry-Dent. And that's fair. Like, because I know there are people that think he's going to be really good too. Like, and I know there's people that will tell you he's one of the more athletic offensive linemen they've got. And I didn't see that in high school. I'm kind of going to let him show me that. But, I mean, his size, even if he's even a moderate athlete in that room, with his size and his frame, okay, like I could buy that. But I just think, if you go after guys like Backlinko, Simmons, like clearly you weren't confident in what was returning at right tackle. And whether with Sexton and Taylor, whether that's a health thing, it could be answered a lot of ways. But again, I just don't see a world where they can't put together a good offensive tackle room. And I know last year we were looking at it at this point in time, you're like, man, that's the question. We don't know what that's going to look like, and obviously it went badly. I think there's a lot more answers on that line this year than there were a year ago.
By the way, I want to remind you guys of a brand new sponsor to the Unofficial 40, CodyDrugRx.com. Cody Drug all over Texas, and the good news is they're kind of becoming, for you guys in Oklahoma, like an Amazon service of their own, because if you go to your doctor and you get a prescription for a GLP-1 weight loss medication, Cody Drug can design a custom solution for you in their state-of-the-art sterile lab and then overnight it to your house on ice. So it basically saves you a trip from going to the pharmacist and waiting. Go to your doctor, get your prescription, go to CodyDrugRx.com, and they will help you get started making your GLP-1 weight loss journey as easy as possible. So whether you're looking to shed just a few pounds or you just want to feel better overall, Cody Drug has you covered. A lot of great supplements as well. Joe C. Jr. came in here and rated our supplements. He is the Cody Drug supplements. You can't put him around supplements, and George knows this. He's always in the weight room. He knows everything there is to know about it. He was telling us what everything did. So he was very impressed with Cody Drug as well. So go check him out, CodyDrugRx.com. Will and his family over there, the big supporters of OU NIL. Maybe a certain receiver that didn't play in the bowl game that he helped pay for. Maybe needs to play next time. And I think he will. Anyway, also, he always wants me to brag that he has 200,000 Instagram followers, which are way more than Eddie has.
He's got me beat there. That's fine.
He really likes
to say anything else?
Well, he likes it when you get mad about it.
I could care less. Could not care less. Is it could care? No, could not care less.
Okay.
Could not.
We love Will, though.
He's the best. All right. I don't know, guys, where you want to go next? I mean,
was there anything in that too deep? And I know that we talked about this a little bit more in depth on the YouTube show earlier this week, but just from a too deep standpoint, offensively, it is going to be super interesting. I know we've talked about the wide receivers, the four that they're bringing in: Giovanni Gibson, Keontez Lewis, Isaiah Satania, and Josiah Martin. But it is going to be interesting to be, at least here during the spring, as John Mateer starts to work with these guys, who that group of, like, how many do they need next year? I think we learned that lesson a little bit the hard way this year, where you were basically having to throw guys out there just to have bodies at wide receiver. But I am interested to see the blending of guys that are returning, obviously, Deion Burks, Jaden Gibson, as he progresses from the patellar injury. I'd throw even a Jacob Jordan in there, the Zion Kearney, Zion Raggins. Like, I'm interested to see the blending of the two sides, or the returners and then the guys that are coming in, who ends up being this wide receiver core for 2025, because obviously Mateer's going to need some guys to throw the football to.
Yeah, looking at that too deep, I mean, that's one of those things where I don't think there's any position that I'm more interested in receiver. I know that's weird for me being the O-line guy all the time, but there's so many ways I can see it going. Like that, like we saw some stuff there at the end of the year from Ivan Carrion, especially against Navy, where you're like, okay, Like, there's some stuff there he can build on. Jaden Gibson coming off an injury, Burks and Satania with that speed. Like, do they want to? Are they going to be? Is Satania going to be behind Burks, or is it going to be a deal where they try and get them on the field at the same time to have some of that deep speed that can really stretch the field with? And then Gibson and Kearney, I think that's a really interesting one to talk about. And Georgia's kind of hypothetical too deep. Because with Kearney, you get the guy who's been at OU for a year. He knows, kind of the way of things. Now, obviously, it's a new offense, and you have to learn that at the same time Javonte Gibson is. But he's also played at a much higher level than Gibson has to this point. But he doesn't have Gibson's experience. He doesn't have the production. I'm big on Kearney. I've been bullish on him for a while, and obviously he had a bad drop in that game, but he also had a big touchdown. So, to me, I think wide receiver guys, I don't know how you feel about this, but to me, that position may decide how this season goes for Oklahoma. Like, I think the running backs will be fine. I think John Mateer is going to be a good player. I think the offensive line will get better and better as the year goes on. I don't know what the wide receivers are going to do.
What I saw from when you're talking about Kearney and Reagans, the Zions, to me, Kearney is simply a matter of gaining confidence that he deserves to be on that field, that he can make plays with anybody that he goes up against, because I think he'll get to that point or closer to that point next season. Reagans, to me, is just a physical thing. Like, can he physically do what he needs to do? As much speed as he has, is he going to be able to beat press coverage? Is he going to be able to go up one-on-one and make catches down the field? Like, I have more questions about him just because of his size probably than I do Kearney. But I also say this, John Mateer will come in here. We've already heard about him kind of taking over a leadership role, and I'm sure he's going to be out there throwing as much as possible to guys that want to come out there. Is that a chance for someone like a Jacob Jordan to kind of develop a special relationship with him to where he could kind of become a go-to guy for him next year?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of those things that we might be able to see in spring, see how those guys are working. They're obviously going to, when we talk to them, they're going to say everything's going well and working their ass off to get on the same page and build that rapport. It's truly probably not going to really actually know what it is until maybe week 2 when they play Michigan. And that's a scary proposition for an offense that obviously has to kind of get themselves out of the depths of hell.
Yeah, and it's really about, who can Mateer trust to be in the right place at the right time. And I think, that's exactly why you don't see a guy like a Jaquez Pettaway on this roster anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I just the whole conversation with some of the guys that left, it kind of is what it is. I would have taken Nick Anderson back, obviously, because I think he was probably one of the best receivers in the portal. But at the same time, can you just get production from guys that can be counted on? And I don't think at times you weren't able to do that this year. A lot of that had to do with the quarterback, but I think the wide receiver unit definitely wasn't without criticism.
How many guys from the 2023 class do you think are still on this roster?
From the 2023 class that Oklahoma brought in?
Yes.
Which would be Brent's first official class, right?
No. 22, I still count 22 as this. I mean, I guess if you don't want to count 22, that's okay. But sure, 2023.
This is like the Jackson Arnold class is what George is talking about.
Yep, Jackson Arnold class.
Well, I know Peyton's still here.
PJ.
I'm trying to do it without
11 of 26 players.
I was going to guess 8. So that's a little better than what I thought.
Now, here's the surprising stat, and this is what I've been working on my spreadsheet. I'm doing a story this week on roster retention, and I'm comparing Oklahoma to Ohio State and Notre Dame. Give me your guess for OU's roster retention rate for the recruiting classes, not transfer portal guys that stay, more than 1 year, just recruiting class only from 2021 to 2023. So the 2021 class, 2022 class, 2023 class.
You want like percentage? Like
percentage, yeah. What do you think? Just give me a rough percentage.
25%?
3%.
Guys, you guys are way low. In the whole recruiting classes. It just told you, so in 2023.
Well, I would say half would be about the average for most people. So I'm going to say
for the 20, and this is for the 2024 season. So like I included, Jackson Arnold was on this roster, Lewis Carter, Josh Bates, guys that are now in the portal. I'm talking about the retention rate for this season. How many guys were on that?
I don't know. You're asking us to do something that you've spent the entire show working on. So
I know.
We haven't really had the time to.
Okay, let me just tell you
into
the answer.
Thank you.
Okay. You don't want to play the game.
This is a terrible game.
No, it's an easy
I
game.
love the game.
You just had a shitty guess. The retention rate for those classes was 63.4%, which is actually amazingly higher than what I thought.
What's Notre Dame and
Notre Dame's
That seems really high.
Notre Dame's is 61%. And Ohio State's is 62.5%. The big difference here, Ohio State and Notre Dame. Ohio State had 6 guys that are 5th or 6th year guys that stuck around, and Ohio State's are like ballers. Like Cody Simon is one of them. G. Scott Jr., Josh Fryer, like guys that play. Notre Dame had 7 of those guys. OU had 1. Now Ohio State only has 13 total transfers on its entire roster this season. Notre Dame only has 11. OU had 21 scholarship transfers on its roster this season.
Those are all great numbers, and you're
about to shit on.
No. If you brought me an apple today, I'd feel a lot better. But anyway.
The big difference, and I haven't crunched this number yet. Hold on. You don't cut me off anymore. Let me speak. The big difference in this story is going to be that you lose all those guys. What I was trying to get to is my point is that now in that 2023 class that was originally you kept for this season was 21 of 26 guys you had kept, which was good retention rate. But then it drops to 11 of 26 from the 2023 class. So your retention isn't as good going into next year. But the 2024 class, you keep 24 of your 27 guys.
Yeah.
That was my point.
The only thing I was going to say is you can throw numbers all you want, and I'm not shitting on them. It's great work. You can throw numbers all you want. What it comes back down to me is, goddamn, Seth Luttrell was a massive failure.
Yes.
It's just like,
and they missed on guys.
There's no number that can help you explain what happened in what's been happening to Oklahoma, other than the fact that made one of the worst possible. Brent Venables made one of the worst possible hires as an offensive coordinator and ruined a season and might ruin his job because of it.
Correct, because I think their roster retention rate, like going through this, has actually been pretty good under Brent. Like they've been able to keep some guys that like other schools would have obviously wanted or would have tried to retain as well. The other problem is I'm looking at this list of transfers that they've brought in, and while I look at like Ohio State, for example, their list of transfers they brought in are high impact players.
It's a huge list,
right? Notre Dame, Notre Dame has brought in, like Devin Ford, for example. It's just been a great player for him. Riley Leonard, obviously, like they've brought Mitch Jeter, the kicker, has been great. OU's roster list, they've brought in 21 guys. I would say less than half of them have been high impact players.
Right.
Like J.J. Hester, Kenai Walker, Brennan Thompson, Andrell Anthony, Devon Sears, Branson Hickman, Garen Hatchett, Jake Roberts.
A lot of failures in there, yeah.
Caden Woolard, even to an extent. He was a nice player, but didn't give you a lot. Bauer Sharp, Sam Franklin, Des Malone, Spencer Brown, Fabechi. Like, these aren't high impact players that they brought in.
I mean, you'd be better off naming the guys that actually worked out. Like, obviously, Deion Burks was a great player to bring in, but he was hurt.
Right. Deshaun McCullough, I mean, is he a high impact player? He had some good moments, right?
I think he was a very, he was good for the team, good for the defense.
Like, I'm looking at this, I would say the guys that have been high impact.
I don't think Trace Ford was high impact, but he was a good player.
Yeah. I would say he was, good player. DJ Terry, Troy Everett, Dominic Williams, even Michael Tarquin to an extent, I think would be thrown in there.
He'd be the only offensive lineman.
Other than that, Everett, though, the last 3 years, that's really it in terms of guys that
they just haven't
that were on the roster this season. That's not included, Dylan Gabriel, obviously, and those type of guys. But that's the part that, to me, doing this research is like, boy, they have not hit in the portal on a lot of these guys.
Which is concerning because the portal, you get to watch guys play at this level for the most part. You know what you're getting.
Well, it's concerning with how much of this year is being relied upon. The portal is going to fix a lot of OU's problems.
Yeah. Now, I will say the way that they've gone about it, it feels like it's been different this year than what they have. I mean, I know that we've talked about the Moneyball idea and getting guys for value and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. You just got to, I guess, trust Jake Rosenberg to a certain extent that this thing's going to be okay.
Well, and the other thing is, like you're talking about retention, keeping people. You spent a shit ton of money keeping people. The Jaden Jacksons and
Yep.
David Stone.
Guys they like. Because
Dominic Williams.
There's a bunch of guys that they let walk.
Yeah.
Well, and again, like I know people got mad, I guess about a month ago now when we kind of had that pod that was kind of dark. But I think you have to give OU some credit for being ahead of the curve, because you look at the portal, like you look at on threes, like, top 10 impact guys. There's not a lot of those guys where I'm like, well, that guy automatically makes OU better. Like, there's some, but there's not like droves of them like we've seen in years past.
When you got the number one guy in Mateer, now you're not showing up on any list after that. But at the same time, if Mateer could be the most impactful transfer of everyone that came in, and I think Marvin Jones Jr., I mean, he looks like a pretty impact. And that's the thing. It's all the defensive guys that are really looking like they'll be the answer. And the offense it was shit. I mean, they're not going to attract. They're not, like, some of these guys, they can kind of get at a discount on the defensive side. Like, I think there's guys that turn down, obviously Ethan O'Connor wasn't going to turn down less money. He went to Miami, got a bunch of money. But at the same time, was he worth what they're paying him based on what we've heard that he got paid? Probably not. Probably not even close.
And we know, like, RSJ turned down more. Like, he could have done better. Like, there were guys in-house that did,
But that's only going to happen on the defensive side. That's not happening on the offense, because there's no track record to prove, okay, I'll take less and stay here, and I'm still going to have a really good prospect to go to the NFL. That's only on the defensive side.
I think, and I think just OU needs to do a better job of evaluating talent both in the portal and on the roster. And I do think there's some hope that, because they did process a lot of guys. Like, they're flipping over its roster this year. But, who's leading that charge? Is it Brent? Is it a new GM? Whoever it is, like, they have to get it right. Like, they're betting on a lot of, like, for example, tight end's a great example. They didn't go after a ton of guys in the portal that were high caliber players. Now, is that because Joe John Finley didn't want to, or is that because they didn't have the money? I think a large part of it is...
Or they weren't attractive to those tight ends.
That, too. I think it was also a part... They believe in Devon Mitchell, and they believe in him maybe being a really good player next year for him. But, like, you better hope that hits, because if it doesn't, you don't have a tight end next year.
I'm going to say this. I don't think they didn't go after tight ends because they think that Devon Mitchell is the answer. I think they still don't know with Devon Mitchell.
Yeah, the tight end position's tough because I think it's a combination of.
Well, in hitting on that, you can talk about position change that might help them in that area.
Jaren Kanak does sound like he's going to, at least in the spring, try out and do some H-back stuff, which I actually think is kind of fun. And I think he'd probably fit that role pretty well. He played like a wildcat quarterback in high school and was really effective at it. But
Josh, what do you think about that? I mean, you saw him more than any of us in high school.
Oh, I love the idea. And again, like I think there's just a certain attitude in those H-back guys. Now, I think some people will think back to like Trey Millard and Dimitri Flowers. And I'm not saying Jaren Kanak's skilled like that. But for what they want to do, and we talked about it on the for those that haven't seen it, go watch the YouTube show, The Portal Report, where we talked about this, where Washington State threw 8 passes to their tight ends last year. I'm not saying that H-back tight end role has to be an All-American caliber player, but they do have them on the field a lot. So for that guy to lead block and do some of the called run stuff that we know, Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer seem to like, having that guy out there lead blocking and again, like if you could work the ball to him in certain situations, if you can get Jaren Kanak in space, Jaren Kanak can run. Like that's not going to be the problem. He's a good enough athlete to do something, and be a problem at points. So I don't mind the idea at all. And my only concern, and again, we talked about this, is the linebacker situation. Like, that number starts to look pretty thin, but it does seem like OU has been preparing for that. Like, this isn't just an idea they wrote on the back of a napkin having dinner the other day. Like, they clearly have been considering this and kind of what that could do to their numbers.
Well, and it's interesting too, because when Ben Arbuckle was in here, George, you were doing that interview. Like, he talked about 12 personnel a lot.
Yeah, and I think they want to run, some 2 tight end sets, but it's just like, who are the 2 tight ends going to be? It's just like, and I don't know if Kanak's going to be like an inline tight end, or if he's going to line up in the backfield, or what he's exactly going to do.
I could definitely get in on the idea, if they really are going to use an H-back per se, Cade McIntyre and Jaren Kanak, I think would be great. I don't know. Maybe I want it to happen more than a reality of it actually being there.
Yeah, and they just need Cade to be healthy.
Sure.
100%. But I think, I don't know. The only thing with it is what are they going to do at linebacker? And like that, now it all makes sense now why they were going after, Jeff Roberson from Oklahoma State and Sterling Dixon from Alabama, the 2 linebackers that they were mostly involved with in the portal. Like, now it kind of checks out. And I think, I know Roberson was like a PWO offer, so it wasn't a scholarship situation. I don't know about Sterling Dixon, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's a position in the spring.
I was going to say, you would think, and who knows what's going to be out there during the spring portal, but you would think there's going to be somebody out there that could, at the very least, come in and give them some depth options at the linebacker position. Where he comes from, who he is he going to be another Connor Neer that comes in and you thought, all right, he might be able to give you some depth? I don't know.
You know what? Guys, go ahead, Josh.
Just quickly, what would you think of the idea of Sammy Omosigho getting some look at Mike and just seeing what that looks like?
He's got the
put
size.
him on my 2 deep as at inside. I don't know if he's going to play Mike or Will, but I definitely think he needs to play some inside linebacker, and I think that they intend to move him inside.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I know that Cheetah's not going to obviously, for this to work, he almost has to be full-time linebacker rather than kind of going back and forth between Cheetah. But I just mean, like, I wonder if at Mike that gives them, whether it's him or Kobe, whoever it's going to be, does that give them the depth they're kind of looking for, where they say, okay, we've got 2 sturdy, good athletes, guys that can play, and that kind of bring different things or kind of different styles of players.
Can I give you...
I think what makes sense is, look, we got to realize spring football is 15 practices. You can do a lot of tinkering. I think what it ends up happening eventually is they say, okay, between Kip and Kobe, who's our number 2? Like, who's best at being a number 2 at either Mike or Will? And then that becomes your 2 deep. And then, like, so if Omosigho could only really play Will and Kip goes down, they just move Kobe to Mike and put Omosigho at Will. You see what I'm saying? Like, they'll take a starter and move him to another position if that means their best number 2 is on the field is possible. That might not make any sense, but in my head it does.
I think I know what you mean. Like, it's
an or. Like, it would be like, your depth chart would be. Hold on.
Is he going to write this down? I don't. Kerry has evacuated the premises. I don't know where he's going. He's going to maybe get some of those stick figures that we could make into like an actual representation of what he's talking about.
While he's gone,
where does Kendall Daniels fit in all of this?
Is he
going to play a little bit linebacker?
I think so. Maybe. I don't know.
Is he going to have the Omosigho role? Like, he'll kind of go back and forth between Cheetah and being a Will?
He has come back with nothing. I thought he was going to bring supplies in.
No, the cleaning lady may have hit our recording equipment, which freaked me out.
Oh.
We're still going, apparently.
Okay, good.
58 minutes in.
Scary proposition.
Can I offer a one statistic, one more stat that I looked into, Carrie, without you yelling at me?
Well, I'm not yelling at you. You're getting butthurt over nothing.
Okay, OU has taken 27 offensive and defensive transfers the last 2 years out of the portal. How many are offensive? 27 out of 27. How many are offensive players out of the portal?
Well, over the last two?
Over the last two.
I'm just guessing 11.
22 out of the 27
Oh my
players have been on the offensive side of the football.
What is going on? I mean, I understand it, and from where we're coming from, that makes sense.
You want me to tell you what's going on? This is my theory. Is you have a defensive coordinator as a head coach that's doing a hell of a job, and that staff is doing a hell of a job of evaluating good talent out of high school ranks, right? They're bringing in great talent that guys they want to retain are Mason Thomas, Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis. They're doing a great job retaining guys on that side of the ball. The offensive side of the ball, it seems like every year it's like, oh, shit, so-and-so didn't develop. Oh, shit, we got to go get this guy out of the portal at this position. That's what that stat tells me, is that the offensive side of the ball, they have done a poor job of evaluating talent out of high school. Not at every position, and not, there's definitely guys that they really like. I think the offensive line especially, they've done pretty well evaluating talent, at least in the last couple years. But I mean, look, you're totally turning over your wide receiver room, your tight end room, quarterback room. Running back's really the only one that hasn't.
I mean, they tried to build an offensive line in one portal.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Last
it was
year,
terrible.
Obviously, it didn't work out.
Last year's offensive line, this year it's wide receiver.
Is there anybody, and I'm just trying to think, like, from an evaluation standpoint, from when you get these guys in high school, Caden Green went on. He's starting at Missouri, or was starting at Missouri. Tawi Walker had a good season at Wisconsin. He's now at Cincinnati. Is there anybody else that is left that all of a sudden found some success at their new home that I'm not thinking of? Because it is an indictment of the guys that they're bringing in if some of these guys aren't going to other places and finding even a moderate amount of success.
But Tawi was a walk-on, too. So
sure.
It's not like...
Sure.
What about
Dalen Smothers had he was basically a backup at NC State. I think
the two offensive linemen that went to SMU both ended up starting.
Savion Byrd started for a college football playoff team. Nate Anderson, I think he's familiar with how much he started or how much he played.
I think he started maybe at the beginning of the season. I can't remember.
Okay, I'm just trying to think. Like, I just don't understand.
There's not been a ton.
I don't understand. I guess what my point is this is basically the same group of coaches that were coaching with Lincoln on the offensive side of the ball. How all of a sudden do they not understand, or have they lost their touch in evaluation, recruiting, all the above?
Well, let's not make it out like Lincoln was just on fire with evaluations.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, everybody he had was already here that's in the NFL right now for the most part.
That's fair.
I mean, his 5-star, I mean, Theo Weiss is doing more at Missouri than he was doing at Oklahoma.
And
that's another good one. Yeah.
This roster just wasn't, like, again, going through the retention stuff, like, this roster just wasn't really in a great place offensively or defensively when Brent took over. The problem is that it's gotten a lot better defensively. I don't think it's gotten any better.
It's gone like this.
Offensively.
Like, one side's gone up and the other side's gone down.
Yeah. Or it's just stayed the same offensively. Like, I don't... Like, because what I'm saying is, like, even the offensive roster when Lincoln's final year, it was good, but it wasn't like those original rosters, you know?
It took Caleb Williams to save that roster.
Yeah.
Because Spencer Rattler's starting in the NFL right now.
Marvin Mims was great on that roster.
Yeah, Marvin, and he was underutilized,
Kennedy Brooks,
probably.
You know, they had some solid offensive linemen on that roster. So it's probably gone down. You're probably right, Eddie, But that, to me, again, signals that, one, you got to hope Ben Arbuckle can get this thing back on track in terms of talent evaluations on the offensive side of the ball. But I also think it also tells you that maybe Brent should have changed offensive staffs completely when he took over, because it's shown time and again.
You're not wrong.
You know, I think it's showing you that this offensive staff has continued to fail at either evaluating talent or developing that talent into the same way that the defensive side has been developed and evaluated the last 3 seasons under Brent.
There's not a coach on this roster that doesn't fall into one of those categories. Correct. I mean, you can include Bill Bedenbaugh. Like, that was recruiting. He failed to procure, if you will, the right players. Now, he's clearly the best developer of talent on that staff. But Emmett Jones, good recruiter. Is he a good developer? That's the biggest question mark with him right now. DeMarco is strictly like game time decision, like just, not playing Xavier Robinson at all and, deciding to redshirt him that early. It's a huge mistake. That's a development situation.
Yeah.
And, we don't even have to talk about Joe John.
It all comes back to
this
is everything I've said is well known. I think it's just these numbers kind of back
Damn
it
it,
all up.
George! Now you want me to fire? We've got to fire everybody now.
No, I don't think you need to fire everybody. But all I'm saying is if there are staff changes in the next couple months or guys leave for other jobs, I don't think it would be the worst thing.
Don't shed any tears.
And I also think it goes back to the point is that the future of this thing largely depends on Ben Arbuckle. Like, I truly believe, like, if Ben Arbuckle can come in here and fix this offense and come up with the scheme that can work with the players they have, but then also be able to go out and, say this staff is retained next year going into 2026, continuing to develop players, evaluate the right players out of high school, that's going to be the key, because the best teams in college football right now are retaining their best players and they're making great evaluations, not only in the high school ranks, but in the portal.
It's crazy. The one coach that has the best reputation for evaluating and developing is probably Kel Gundy.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
That was on this staff when Brent got here.
And, I think that everybody's probably doing it as they listen. Things changed when he left or, had to go or was removed. It's a fact.
Yeah, and I do think there's something also in it, George, like they're scrambling. Like they're making decisions based on it not getting worse than it is just starting over and making it better from the ground up. I mean, they've literally, I will say, in my opinion, Brent didn't make any staff moves because he didn't want to lose any recruits because it was so close to signing day.
I think that when he originally came in is what you're talking about. Or this year.
You're talking about this year? After he hired Ben Arbuckle.
With Bill, I can understand it. What's the argument for tight end?
That's the one you can't argue.
It's just a bizarro world.
Or running back. Even though you like your young talent,
I think they know they needed Torrey Blaylock to get here.
I don't know. Is that somebody that
Josh? You do not agree with that?
And with that said, DeMarco did bring in the number one running back in the country last year, Taylor Tatum.
Yeah, I would. Don't get me wrong. I like Torrey Blaylock. Do I think he's the kind of guy that you're like, well, if we don't have him, we're rudderless here. Like, this is a problem. Like, you've got you've got Taylor Tatum coming back. You've got Xavier Robinson coming back. Now, maybe that's the thought is if DeMarco leaves,
then maybe they don't come
guys
back.
Are gone.
Yeah,
exactly. And that, okay, now maybe you do have a problem. So,
but no, I think as much I probably misstated that. I think it was not just recruiting, but retention is why he kept everyone on staff because he didn't want to. The portal was opening, signing day was happening. He didn't want to have the floodgates open.
I think if Brent Venables fails as the Oklahoma head coach, I think we can look back on several things. I think one, you can say that he should have cleaned house on the offensive side of the ball when he first came in. Like he should have let Jeff Lebby just hire whoever. And maybe Jeff Lebby wanted to keep all those people. I'm sure he wanted to keep Bill. And then I think
I'm sure he wanted to keep Joe John.
Yeah.
But when Jeff left for Mississippi State, just promoting from within was a massive mistake. That should have been the year that you went out and got the Ben Arbuckle type and let them bring in their own offensive staff and start over basically on that side of the ball with the new staff. And then I think it's you look at just kind of this season and we'll see if Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer work out because he's betting his future on those two. And then the other part of it too, this is more program overlook, no matter who the head coach is, it's pivotal they find the right GM in the next few months. And they're actively looking for whoever that's going to be.
What's your guess on timeline on that?
Spring. I think they would like to have it done by the spring transfer portal window, which I don't know that off the top of my head right now. I think it's sometime in April. The only problem with that is they are looking to hire somebody that is likely in the NFL right now, somebody that has some NFL experience, whether that's as a scout or a personnel director or whatever it is. This is a very busy time of the year for those people, whether their teams are in the NFL playoffs right now or they're getting ready for the NFL draft, which is coming up in a few months. So if you told me that it wasn't till May after the NFL draft that they hire somebody, that wouldn't surprise me either. But I think they would like to get it done sometime in the spring.
The 10-day window for the spring 2025 portal opens on April 16th, which would be the week after the spring game. And then it shuts down on April 25th, 2025.
Yeah.
Which the AFCA today is trying to eliminate the spring portal. So
yeah, they are. And I don't think that, like, from the coach's perspective, and I think it appears that everybody was in agreement yesterday with the vote, I don't think it's a bad idea at all.
I think it's a great idea. I think the 10-day window following, basically you have a 10-day window after your final game, whether that's a bowl game, playoff game. I think that's great. And then no spring portal window, I think that's also great.
And then you have to have some exceptions, like if your coach leaves.
Yeah, coach leaves. Like if, for example,
a single portal window under what the AFCA approved or voted for this past week would be from January 2nd to January 12th. So everybody would be under the same, window, instead of your window opens here and it closes here. That was super confusing during December, and it still is confusing because the window's been closed, but every other day you see somebody. I've entered somebody from OSU entered their name in the portal yesterday or the day before, and it's like, well, I thought the window closed.
I think a lot of times that's grad transfers, though. They can do any. They can.
They're having to
transfer
complete their
their
degree.
They get their
or whatever.
degree and then they're eligible.
But I wonder what they do. Like if this is just an example, but DeMarco Murray leaves in February, could and say this is the new rules. Could Sam Franklin or Taylor Tatum, whoever, you pick your poison, could they enter in the spring still? Like, see what I'm saying? Or are they stuck at OU?
Well, they could enter.
That's why I like
if
spring.
They were to eliminate a spring portal.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
There's all kinds of stuff that can happen between, January 12th and the end of spring camp, though.
Yeah. That's my question.
Yeah.
I think that you'd have to give those players an opportunity to transfer after the spring semester is over, because you can't transfer in the middle of the semester with classes going on. I mean, it would be impossible.
It would be the first time the NCAA actually did anything close to putting their foot down if they did this, because they've done nothing but roll over for everything.
Well, you would think that is something that a commissioner could regulate, but right now it does not appear that we are headed in that direction.
All right, Josh, I know you got to get out of here. We're up against it, but no, we'll be back again each and every week with the unofficial 40. And Hoops Report has started. We'll go back to having the recruiting reports on Monday as well. Then anytime something big happens, we'll do an instant reaction. So all the stuff around the defensive coordinator hiring, you can bet that we'll continue to come on to YouTube and let you guys know what's going on. So. Yes.
Who's going to win the national championship?
Ohio State.
We're all on Ohio State.
I'm on Ohio State.
I was a little bit surprised how big that number is, though. It opened at like 10.5, and I think it's been hovering in between 8.5 and 10.5. I just want a game to be good in the fourth quarter that leaves no doubt.
Yeah, I don't want another Rose Bowl.
It kind of feels like this is Ohio State's to lose. Although I guess somewhat been kind of doubting Notre Dame all year, and they just keep winning football games. I think what Marcus Freeman's done has been super impressive. I thought the semifinal win was kind of incredible, the way that they were able to do it. And we'll see. I'm excited for it, though. It's going to be a good game, I hope.
Do you guys... All right, let me ask you this then. This is a more interesting question. Does the winner of the national championship, are they coaching at that same school next season? So if Ohio State wins, is Ryan Day back at Ohio State the next year? And if Marcus Freeman wins, is he back at Notre Dame?
Hand up. And I don't know the answer to this. I know his name's always been connected to some NFL openings. Ryan Day at the NFL level, I don't know. With either one of them, I could see Marcus Freeman a lot easier. Yeah, I know he has the experience.
And then he went with Chip Kelly to where did he go after the Eagles?
Well, he was out of football and then went to UCLA.
He went. Ryan Day went to another NFL team.
Was he with the 49ers for a second?
49ers,
and then went down to UCLA
49ers.
To Los Angeles. I don't know. I could see Marcus Freeman doing it a lot easier. There's some ultimate irony in all of this that for the last 3 months, Ohio State fans basically wanted Ryan Day fired, and he's now 4 quarters away from winning the national championship. If that's not like college football and the immediacy of winning now in a nutshell, I don't know what is.
Josh, if you want to give your thoughts real quick, because I know I don't want your girls standing out in the rain or anything. You got to go pick them up.
It's a beautiful day in Houston.
No.
They'll be fine. This is character development.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. No, they're most excited about the potential for snow here in Houston next week.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's going to be a deal.
The people of Houston will handle that well.
If I'm betting, just based on what you're seeing in the NFL, I kind of don't think either of these coaches are going to be at those spots next year. Like win, lose, or draw. Like something. Marcus Freeman feels like that guy that everybody's like, yeah, because he has such a demeanor to him, and he has such just a presence. Like you're like, I guarantee he's a guy that goes into interviews and kills it. Like just is like so impressive and is really locked in and just impresses everybody. So I don't know. Like something tells me one of those guys is going to be the head coach of the Bears, and then I don't know. Like I don't know. It feels like something, like it's like a farewell tour is happening at Ohio State, where this whole thing just changes going into next year. I don't know why I feel that way. That's just a gut feeling, because I don't think Ryan Day's an NFL coach. Like I think he's a college guy all day, every day. But I just feel like somebody's going to convince themselves that he can do it at that level.
I agree. I don't think either one will jump to the NFL, but it wouldn't shock me either. I think that it sounds like the Bears want to interview both of them. I don't know if the Bears are interviewing everybody.
It's going to be really interesting to see, like, where do salaries go with coaches? Like, we'll see you, Josh. Thanks, man. We'll wrap up here. But, like, you've got to pay players now. You've got revenue sharing coming. Like,
there are just...
George, you've mentioned before, like, how much less NFL assistants get paid than college assistants. Like, you have to course correct at some point to where you're not paying your coaches $10 million.
There's just so much with college football and just college athletics in general that I know that they're not completely, aligned together in a way. But I think that for somebody that just wants to coach football, why the hell would you be involved in college athletics right now, particularly at this time?
And we're going to find out if Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman really want to stay in college football.
Yeah, you got to be a little crazy.
Marcus Freeman, I think Marcus Freeman's, he could coach in the NFL and do well. I think he's a college coach too. Like, he just doesn't strike me as somebody that would want to leave Notre Dame.
I say that, and then, I think that, like, that line is definitely getting blurred a little bit now, and especially with the Deion stuff in Dallas, if that were to happen.
What were you were saying, like, he's actually converted to Catholicism the last couple of years? Like, that sounds like a Notre Dame guy lifer almost.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman, yeah. And how old is Marcus Freeman? Like
39, I think.
And we don't know how much he makes, right? Because he's at a private university.
I'm sure. Yeah, he's 39. I'm sure he is being paid very handsomely.
Ryan Day's
he's going to be paid even more after this season.
Ryan Day's making $10.5 million.
How do you go up from there? Like, yeah, that's crazy.
It's good money if you can get it.
It's good money if you can steal it. All right, that's going to do it. We will be back again next week. And lots of stuff coming on the YouTube. We're going to get more regular there with content. So keep checking in. Thanks again for getting us over 20,000. So now we go to 25. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you back here again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast from Soonerscoop.com.